A very warm welcome to all the listeners to Law Simplified lecture series started by Abhimanyu IS. The topic for today's discussion would be opinion of experts under law of evidence. Before coming to the topic for today's discussion, let's understand that why at the first instance experts are required in the courts. We all are aware that judges are trained, they have their expertise in applying laws to a certain set of facts in a case. But however, whenever there is a case which involves a complex question of fact, which cannot be understood easily on a first blush, in such cases, experts are necessarily required. Their opinion is highly important. Let's take an example, a very recent example. When the farm laws were challenged before the Honorable Supreme Court, the Supreme Court was pleased to appoint an expert committee to find out a solution to the grievances of the protesting farmers. So the very act of appointing such expert committee itself shows that there is a provision for taking the opinion of experts whenever it is necessary based on the facts of the case. Now, in the modern era, the litigation has got very complex. So to say, there are cases which involve medical negligence. There are cases which involve comparison of handwriting. There are cases which involve interpretation of various foreign laws, sciences or arts. In such cases, the judges who have their expertise in dealing with questions of law and question of fact are not able to solve these complex questions. Therefore, the need for having experts arises. Now, the next question that we must consider is that whether the opinion of an expert is binding on the court, whether it is admissible in a trial, whether it is considered as relevant or not. This question will be addressed in today's session. So before coming to that, first let's understand what is the basic law pertaining to the admissibility of opinion of a witness. If all of us, I assume that we have read the basic tenets of the Evidence Act, we all must be aware that a witness is required to give his testimony on facts. He is not required to give his opinion. To exemplify the same, I will give a short instance of a case of a, say, hit and run case. In a hit and run case, for example, an eyewitness comes before the court to give his testimony. Such witness is only required to say that he saw the person driving the car, hitting the car in a person and running away. But he is not required to give his opinion qua the guilt of the driver of the car. So therefore, so far as his testimony with respect to the facts is concerned, it will be admissible. But so far as his testimony with respect to the opinion, with respect to his opinion that it was the same driver who committed this offense with the malified intent, etc., will not be admissible. Why? Because it is the duty of the judge to frame his opinion and give the findings based on what the witness has stated. So this is the general law pertaining to the testimony of witnesses and the non-admissibility of opinions given by witnesses. Now there is an exception to this general rule. That exception is encapsulated under Section 45 of the Evidence Act. Now what does Section 45 say? Section 45 acknowledges the fact that a person who is an expert in his own field, maybe science, art or any profession, is allowed to give his opinion, and such opinion will be a relevant fact in the trial. So this is what Section 45 provides. It provides an exception to the general rule. Now what is the principle underlying the Section 45 of Evidence Act? The basic principle is that a person who has a skill or who has acquired superior knowledge in any profession, art form, etc., has to be believed, and therefore, if he gives a opinion on a particular subject, his such opinion is also to be considered as relevant and admissible as admissible as evidence in a trial. Now, having basically laid down a foundation for the acceptability or admissibility of expert opinion as evidence under the Evidence Act, we need to understand that what is the difference between a expert witness and an ordinary witness. The first difference that we have understood through the discussion so far is that an expert witness can even state his opinion on particular facts, whereas an ordinary witness is not permitted to give his opinion is not admissible. First difference is that. Secondly, the expert can cite authorities, he can cite books from where his opinion is coming from, that will also be considered by the court as admissible and relevant. Thirdly, the expert can also talk about the detailed experiments that he has carried out to come to his opinion or his findings for a particular fact. So all these three things basically help in differentiating an expert witness from an ordinary witness. Now, once an expert witness, for example, in a case involving a question with respect to the calculation of the percentage of disability an individual has suffered on account of an accident, in order to come to a conclusion as to how much compensation he is to be given. In such a case, if say a doctor is coming before the court as an expert witness to give his opinion on the fact that the victim has suffered say 50% disability or 60% disability, in that case, the first thing that the court will do, they will adjudicate the competency of such expert or such doctor to see whether he is actually competent to give a testimony in form of an opinion. So therefore, the first thing that the court has to do whenever an expert witness comes before them is to assess the competency of such expert witness. Once that competency is assessed and the court comes to a conclusion that such person is actually competent to give his opinion on a particular fact, only then his evidence will be considered as admissible and relevant. Which brings us to the next question, that is regarding admissibility of opinion of an expert. So we need to understand that merely because an expert comes before the court and gives his testimony, that does not make his opinion admissible per se. It is not admissible by default. Basically, it has to be accepted with great caution. The court has to firstly see that whether the expert is competent to give his opinion. Then the court is also obliged or legally bound to see that whether such expert is not acting in a biased manner or is not deposing or not giving his opinion in a manner which is prejudicial to the interests of a particular side. So basically, the opinion of an expert is not admissible per se. It has to be seen by the court whether to accept it or not. So therefore, to sum it up, three requirements are required to be fulfilled for admissibility of an expert opinion or an expert evidence. The first is that the expert should be from a recognized field. He could be a doctor, he could be a handwriting expert, but he should be from a recognized stream. Then the evidence must be reliable and cogent. Thirdly, the expert must be qualified in his discipline. So all these three things can be put to such an expert witness while he is undergoing his cross-examination from the defense side or the prosecution side, from whichever side the cross-examination is taking place. Now a very interesting question arises, which is of great practical significance, is that what would happen if two experts give their opinion which is contradictory? Now in such cases, the court has to see various factors. Now for example, in a case involving interpretation of forensic science, there are two experts who have a contrary opinion with respect to the cause of death. However, the court will see various factors in order to give primacy to the opinion of either of the expert. One of which could be that, for example, a doctor who has conducted the post-mortem of the deceased immediately after his death and given his findings that the cause of death is A, his opinion will be given primacy over the opinion of a doctor who has merely examined the reports 10 days after the death of the deceased and come to a contrary conclusion. So therefore, this is just one example. There are many other instances and examples wherein the court gives primacy to the opinion given by either one of the experts when such opinions are contradictory. Secondly, there could be an instance where there's a conflict between the opinion given by the expert and the opinion given by, say, the testimony given by a expert, ordinary witness. So in cases where there is a dispute, there is a contradiction between the opinion of an expert and a testimony of an ordinary witness, it is not necessary that the opinion of the expert will be given primacy. In such cases, the court will see whether the direct evidence on record helps or supports the testimony of the ordinary witness, and if in case the direct evidence supports the testimony of the ordinary witness, in such cases the opinion of the expert will not be considered. Now let's take an example of that. For example, a board is constituted of doctors to find out the age of a boy, of a girl or a boy. In such cases, if his school certificates say that he is of 18 years of age and the expert or the doctors say that he could be of 16 or 17, in such cases the court is more inclined to accept the age given in the official record than to go by the age given by the board of doctors which was constituted to ascertain the age. So this is one example where the opinion of expert is not considered in light of contrary direct evidence. Now let's come down to certain instances where expert opinions are given, or certain types of expert opinions. For example, in cases of gunshot injuries, ballistic experts come in. They basically apprise the court about the entry wound, exit wound, and whether it could be caused in the manner as it has been alleged in the FIR or not. Then there are experts which talk about the workability of a weapon, so to say that a particular weapon, whether it could have caused that injury or not. So these are the kind of experts. Then there are expert committees that are constituted. Then courts even consider opinion of authors on certain interpretation of foreign laws or any science or art. So these are certain instances where the expert opinion is sought for. Now, last head of discussion for today's lecture would be whether the court can act as an expert or not, whether the court has the power to act as an expert itself. Now, the Honorable Supreme Court in plethora of judgments has stated that in a question of fact or in a situation where there are certain technical things to be answered or looked for, in such cases the courts should refrain from acting as an expert itself, and it should take the opinion or it should take the help of people who have their expertise in such field. So this is the general law which is laid down by the Honorable Apex Court. However, there is a slight exception to this general law. That is in cases where the court, without going into much detail, can embark upon the field of expert and come to a conclusion. An example of that would be, for instance, a court is trying to understand or trying to ascertain the fact that whether the signatures match on two documents or not. Now, in such case, nothing stops the court from comparing those two documents and the signatures by a bare eye and come to a conclusion that they are not same. However, in such cases, if the court is not able, upon such bare approval of the documents, if the court is not able to come to a conclusion, then it can definitely call for the opinion of a handwriting expert. But nothing stops the court at the first instance to compare both the documents. So in such cases, it will not lead to any violation of the settled law. However, in cases such as those pertaining to medicine or pertaining to the medical field per se, the judges are expected not to embark upon the field of experts because they don't have their expertise in that. So therefore, if a judge gives their opinion or a finding with respect to, say, anything pertaining to medicine or some medical law, that is not the correct approach. So with this, we conclude our today's lecture. Before concluding, we'll just quickly sum up what we have discussed so far. Firstly, we have discussed that what is the role of an ordinary witness in a trial, whether an ordinary witness can give his opinion or not. Then we have discussed the exception to the fact that a witness cannot give his opinion that lies under section 45 of the Evidence Act, which provides that expert opinion would be relevant. Then we have discussed the factors which govern or the process as per which the expert opinion is to be made admissible, and in what circumstances it can be considered as relevant. Finally, we have discussed the kinds of expert opinions pertaining to, say, ballistic experts, handwriting experts, even sniffer dog tracking evidence is also considered as expert opinion. The master of such dog is basically called in before the court to give the testimony. So even that is a very interesting part. And finally, we have concluded by saying that, or we have discussed the circumstances where the court itself can act as an expert. With this, we conclude our today's lecture. Hope we could learn something about the very interesting exception carved out in the Evidence Act in terms of section 45, which permits opinions of experts to be relevant in evidence. Thank you.